And we're rolling. Welcome to the show.
Oh, hey, this sounds really good.
There you go.
Awesome stuff.
Okay, you can even use your radio voice. Today on the show is another Veterans edition of the Meincke Show podcast. We have with us in studio, what's your name again?
John Sr.
Are you sure? We have John Sr. with us, a good friend of mine. So glad to have him on. And we're going to be talking about peer support and the importance of peer support. John, tell me a little bit about how you fell into peer support and how long you've been doing that role and the relevance to the veteran community.
Sure thing. What ended up happening was I did my tour in Afghanistan. I came back and started having some issues and stuff. And then I was in the Air Force. So I was on a real hard Air Force base on Coal Lake. Anybody who's been there before knows that there's not really a lot of support out there, like medical-wise, right? And there's even less support out there for veterans with PTSD or any kind of OSI kind of thing, right? Anyways.
For the audience, what's an OSI?
An operational stress injury.
Okay.
So that includes your depression, your anger, PTSD, anxiety, and all those kinds of forms of anything with mental health injuries is what that is. Anyways, so up in Coal Lake, I ended up getting released in 2013 or 2012, 2013 in the area. It's a fog. Anyways, it's irrelevant. And what ended up happening was I went into barbering just before I released anyways. So barbering has a bit of an aspect of it. It's people are just like bartenders, right? Everyone tells you their things and that kind of stuff. And because I was still in Coal Lake, my clientele as a barber, I had about 25% of the base for men's haircuts. I had a clientele of over 250 troops that were rolling through my barbershop on a regular basis. And then so what ended up happening was I was introduced to OSIS, and OSIS is the Operational Stress Injury Social Support, and that is sanctioned by Veterans Affairs D&D in a half and half responsibility in a National Joint Council.
Sort of an odd structure.
A bit of an odd structure. What it does is it allows the military to have a certain amount of say, but it also has the Veterans Affairs being in that. And as time has gone by in the last couple of years, Veterans Affairs is taking more of an assertive role in OSIS. And what that has done is it's really allowed, it's allowing us as coordinators to be able to use more of the Veterans Affairs system. So we're kind of an odd duck in the whole kind of thing as an OSIS. So what ended up happening was I left military completely. I'm in the barbering full time now at this point in time. And then what is happening is I was introduced to OSIS, as I just said, and they approached me to ask me if I wanted a job. I didn't ask where or when. I just said, sure, I'll take it now. Okay.
Show me the money.
Well, actually, the way I looked at it at that point in time was when someone approaches you for a job from the government, you take it.
Yeah.
So I didn't question. I just took it, right? And the reason why I took it was twofold. Was primarily, as I just said, when they ask you, you take it. But the other thing was I was already doing that job anyways, essentially as a barber. So I was like, well, hey, that just makes it's hand in glove, right? So I just carried on through and did that. Moved down to Calgary here, and then I ended up doing OSIS full time. And pretty interesting thing was I learned a lot in this parapsychology field, right? You're not certified, you're not recognized as anything, but it's just it is in the parapsychology field, but it's peer support. So what it does, it's that missing element of veterans getting the help that they need. And I came down here cold. I had no clue about anything, right? I knew I was a good talker. I knew I can listen to people and I can empathize with them because I have my military background is pretty diverse, and that's why it helped a lot. So I started off Reg Force Combat Arms, and then I went to Combat Arms Reserve, and then I went Air Force Reserve, and then Reg Force. And I've got tours in 94 in Bosnia, 97 in Bosnia, 2001 in Bosnia again. and then Afghanistan, and a couple local stuff here in Canada as well. So just being around the whole area makes a big difference in Reg First, Reserve World, Air Force, Army. So I can understand a lot. I mean, because when you try to talk to somebody who's Air Force and has no combat arms experience, there's things that are missed.
It's a different language.
It absolutely is. And you can't take a combat arms guy and talk total Air Force on him, because he's going to like, get the fuck out of my face. Well, you're just a fucking wog. Like, what the hell you want, right?
Yeah, I've seen quite a few guys go from combat arms, in particular infantry, to Air Force, and that actually was as jarring, if not worse,
Yeah.
than transitioning into the civilian world. Because
Yeah.
from a lot of people's perspective, Air Force is basically a civilian job in uniform.
Yeah.
And they're expecting the same sort of discipline and respect and everything else that was on an Army base, and it ain't happening.
You're talking to a guy who went through that. Let me tell
Yeah.
you, interestingly enough, when I was TAC Hell, it was pretty cool because, we're Air Force playing on an Army base. So I was still, they called us bilingual. Okay. But I was perfectly at home doing TAC Hell stuff. But when I went full up Air Force, hard Air Force, within 3 months of hitting the base, they actually sent me, they sent me on dealing with difficult people, conflict resolution, a whole bunch of other courses. So I was gone for a while because I went and I did the old hydraulic finger on the sergeant there as a corporal.
You didn't pull out the knife hand? It was the pokey chest.
I totally bypassed the knife hand and I
Went
went
chest.
straight to 50 cal like this, right?
People don't understand. That's escalation of force. Like, this is like, I am pretty serious, and this
Yeah.
is, we're ready to fight now.
That's exactly it, right? And getting into that kind of stuff, into peer support, you understand these kinds of things later on that we'll get into, is in your faceness kind of stuff. And same with words. Just as your actions, your physical actions, same with the word stuff as well. Is just like your ROEs, right? You're stepping them up. As one person does this, you're going to amp up another level of aggression kind of thing and stuff. So I learned all this in OSIS. Just amazing.
Try to give yourself about another 4 inches away from the microphone. there.
Away from the microphone.
Yeah, right about there.
Is the booming voice that's doing it.
And that's what it is.
It's the booming
James
voice.
Earl Jones over there. Still playing with the setup.
All right, so what were we just talking about a second ago? Okay, yes.
Squirrel.
Yeah. So came down to Calgary and started going this, and it just like a duck to water into the OSIS thing. But I can't talk too much about the OSIS thing because right now, but I will talk about peer support.
Peer support in general.
Peer
And
support
the
in
importance of
general. And that's why I wanted to go from that. So as my job in OSIS, I learned a lot about peer support. And there's a lot of brands of peer support out there, different levels of peer support out there. And pretty immersive. I learned very, very quick about good peer support, bad peer support.
What would be an example of bad peer support? Not to point fingers or name anybody, but
Yeah,
what
no
would that
names,
look
no
like?
pack drill, right? So
Yeah,
let's
that's
just do that philosophy here. Bad peer support is somebody has a good idea, they're very disgruntled about the peer support they already had, or they just learned about peer support, they don't have peer support, so they're going to start their own peer support group. No training, no formality, no accountability.
And no idea how to do it the right way.
That's the bad peer support.
Yeah.
Reason why is what I have seen firsthand is these groups will form up, but 6, 12, 18 people. Guy will do it in his back of his garage with a case of beer kind of thing. Everything goes good for the first few months, maybe a year. If you're lucky, you can get 2 years out of it. But then what ends up happening is everybody kind of group together and they solidify and they gel. And then what happens is you get transference of the issues. And then when you start seeing individuality starts disappearing and the whole group becomes one entity and they collapse.
Okay. Turns into groupthink.
It's a group. It's exactly it, right? It's mob mentality. Single mob, single agenda. Away they go, and they're not getting what they need for that. So, staying with a formalized organization that is accountable is the only way to go. And the reason being is because when you start getting stuck in a group, then things happen, and then they'll move it away, kind of thing. When anybody with no formal training, no accountability, no answering to their bosses or other coordinators, other peer support people, then you'd get lost in the woods.
There's more to it than just having some sort of a certificate or the checkbox activity of training.
Yeah.
It must be really difficult to find somebody who's the right blend of been there, done that, got the T-shirt.
That's right.
But still sorted out enough that they have the right tone and the right personality to be in the forefront of a group. It's got to be really difficult to find that perfect blend because it's such a
being a peer support
critical role.
It is. It truly is. And the peer support facilitator. Okay, we'll just step out of the OSIS thing altogether. There's not much in that, just for safety's sake. But being a peer support facilitator it really is a unique thing. You can't just put that out in the newspaper and advertise it. It is something that the organization has learned is you're going to go through about 2,000 people to maybe find that one person that could do it. So when we find somebody that is that person, that's why they approached me. That's why I was approached.
Yeah.
Because it was a personality, it was a diversity, it was a whole bunch of things. There's so many things to go and look through to find out that this guy's got what it takes, you know. And myself, with the 200 people I've gone through in the last 3 years, I've only seen a total of 3, maybe 4 people that could potentially do it. Mm-hmm. You know, once you start doing it, that's when you're going to find out if they're going to make it or not, right? But when you see it first is, that person's got it kind of thing, then they can do it.
It's got to be a high burnout role. I mean, just on Facebook, you see a suicide every other week. Yeah. You know, sometimes more. Another one down. It's either cancer or suicide. It's one of the two.
Yeah.
And of course, every time there's a cancer case, we're always wondering, was it something I was exposed to?
Yeah.
Because it very well may have been. And there's a lot more than just depleted uranium out there that we have to worry about. Which there's no test for after 5 days of exposure.
Yeah.
So for yourself, have you enjoyed it the whole way through? Or
absolutely. You know what? I still do it, but I'm no longer doing it on a full-time basis. I just can't, because that burnout rate you're talking about. But it's not something I'm going to ever give up because there's too much of a need for it.
Have you seen suicides on your watch, guys that within that 200 that?
I've talked guys out of windows a few times. One guy, I got a phone call just before Christmas a little while back. This guy was literally in a window, and there was 3 cops in his room. There was 2 in the hallway, and there was 5 downstairs. They stopped the transit system because he was going to jump in front, kind of thing. And so talked him out of that. And it's the suicide thing is kind of a weird thing, you know. It's, for the most part, what I will say is when someone says they're going to commit suicide, they're not.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is, we're all ex-military, especially for combat arms. If you're going to do it,
you just do it.
You're going to do it. Like, you really are. We don't mess around. If we're the dealers of death. Okay. If we really want to do it, we're not going to fuck it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless the hand of God steps in. A friend of mine.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right.
Was, of course, no names, no pack drill, but a friend of mine couldn't believe he was sharing a story. It took him a couple of days. But first he had alluded to that he had attempted himself. Mm-hmm. And anyway, he just did it. He said there was no work up to it. There was no seeing it coming. And it was just something just clicked, and that was it.
Yeah.
And he just made the decision. And he grabbed a rope, walked into the forest, climbed a tree, tied on a branch, and jumped.
Yeah.
Branch broke.
There you are.
Branch broke. And whether he was subconsciously picking one that would hopefully break or who knows, but he had every intention of it being the real deal. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a cry for help. He didn't tell anybody about it.
No.
And not for, I think if I remember correctly, a year after did anybody ever know that he had done that?
Yeah. And you want to know something, once again, so you're hitting exactly what I was talking about a second ago. The ones that are broadcasting it, that's a cry for help.
Yep.
So when someone says to me they're going to commit suicide, I'm like, okay, let's take this seriously. You're not going to go and fucking off yourself, but what you are doing is you're telling me this. So let's get right down to it. And that, once again, it's that ability to see, right? And the ability to empathize. I mean, yeah, have I thought about suicide? Lost count. But have I done it? No. Have I planned for it? No. Right? So low risk.
Yeah.
Other people who have attempted to, once again, it's as individual as apple pie. It really is. You can't say this is the way it is, right? Yeah.
You've seen the impact of peer support.
Yeah.
When I recently did a course in Montreal to help out a little bit and run the occasional peer support group when others can't. And it was said then that it has been clinically proven that peer support is a big help. Not a silver bullet. You can't rely on it.
Right.
You have to do more than just peer support. But it's an essential tool in the tool chest, in the toolbox for a veteran's recovery. And I'd like to point out as well, I often say veteran. I'd like to also include all first responders.
Yeah.
It's one isn't better than the other. We don't compare trauma.
Yeah, it's not a pissing contest.
It's
so
not a
just move
pissing
past that.
contest.
Exactly.
Yeah, whether you're a paramedic or a firefighter.
Yeah.
And actually, those most vulnerable, from everything I've read, seems to be correctional officers for whatever reason. Just always being on high alert, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of us that are suffering and have to deal with it. And it's a long road. So can you give me an example of before and after with peer support, or can you share some thoughts on what the role is and what it is not, as far as somebody's recovery?
Let's hit that last point first. What it is not. Peer support is not a replacement for clinical therapy. Peer support is not a replacement for getting help that you need. What peer support is essentially for a soldier, it's a map and compass. Okay? It helps us understand what is going on with us and what is the way out of the woods. Okay?
It increases situational and personal awareness.
It gives you SA is what it truly does.
Yeah.
And in order to move through an OSI effectively, you can't do it alone, because if you're doing that, what you're doing is you're just prolonging the problem. You're going to get deeper into the woods, and it's going to take longer to get out. The more lost you are, the harder it is to get unfucked. Okay, truly. If anybody out there thinks that they can do this by themselves or keep this a secret and just not tell anybody and figure it out, good luck, buddy.
I mean, all you got to do, I've been told, all you got to do is go for a walk in the woods, John.
Exactly.
Anybody can go find a forest. Isn't that all you got to do?
These people that really have thought they can do it by themselves,
Yeah.
I don't push anybody. I never have. And I wait for them to come to me, because what you got to think of is every person is like a wolf. When they initially are in denial that they have any form of OSI, it's going to be the end of their career. Their standoff distance towards that stuff just doubles immediately. Boom. There's I don't believe in that fucking PTSD stuff. Fuck that shit. That's just blah, blah, blah. Those are just for fucking pussies, blah, blah.
I may have said that once or twice myself.
But you know what? When they eventually have had enough, and that's what you say to them, say, you know what? When you've had enough pain and agony and you want to fix your shit, you come talk to me. We will have a real conversation, and there's no judgment. Biggest thing about peer support, no judging. You cannot judge anybody. Their pain is real. Whatever the cause may be, okay? They seriously, it could be as simple as having a really bad PER just before they guarantee the promotion and they're feeling betrayed, okay? Or it could be a rape. It could be whatever. They've seen something bad, or their buddy got blown up. Whatever it is, it makes no fucking difference. The pain is real. Air Force, Army, or Navy, doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter.
And that's what perfect segue. Good job. What do you say to the people, because we've heard this so many times.
Yeah.
The one fellow that I brought to group saying the same thing that I said, and we hear again and again, where they minimize their own experiences,
Yeah,
and they
yeah,
don't
yeah.
believe that they have the right to seek help. Because how could they have PTSD? Because they compare themselves to someone who had more tours than them, or
Yeah.
more experience on the tour, or but I wasn't outside the wire and you were, so why would I have PTSD?
That's the danger. That's the danger of those pop-up, what's the grassroots peer support groups. Okay, the one guy is whatever, and he's got 6 other friends that have the same kind of thing,
Yeah.
and they bunker up. That's the danger right there. Okay,
Because they shit on the people that
They
don't have
shit
the
on-
same level of experience.
That's right. I don't, because you know what? I deal with people that were outside the wire guys. I
Yeah.
deal with wire monkeys like I was in Afghanistan. In other words, I was only in CAF.
Yeah.
And I deal with Air Force. I deal with clerks. I deal with, it doesn't matter. You want to know something? When it comes down to it, the struggle is real for each individual person. And no person is less worthy of the help of peer support. No person is more entitled to. That's where these problems happen, okay? Those barriers got to be broken. And so when I do my peer support stuff, I say it's non-gender. What I'm talking about, that I want to really broad stroke this thing here, is when I say we're non-gender, I don't care male, female, gay, straight, it doesn't matter. Those, the sexual orientation, color of uniform doesn't matter. Where your OSI happened, what it's from, doesn't matter. We need to break all that shit down. Any of that kind of bias is not allowed in my room. And I tell you, there's a big difference. I got one, first of all, one guy was a door kicker in my group, okay? And it didn't take long for the big change to happen. And they understood. They're like, wow, that was a pretty narrow mind. And it's mind, when you see this stuff, it's mind blowing, because that's where the changes start happening. Because no matter where it came from or who you were, the techniques of recovery are all the same.
You've been out of service for a while, but have you, or are you aware of any big changes within the military of pre-deployment and post-deployment to try to prepare and prepare people for traumatic events and how to deal with it?
Lots of changes. Even though I'm out of uniform now, we're still allowed to walk through the units and be fully integrated into just going places and doing things. Okay, so there's no barriers that way, and that's why OSIS is so unique in the fact that it can still do that. Okay, we can still walk through the regiments with the permission of the CO and that kind of stuff. We still go on to bases with the permission of the base commanders and that kind of stuff, and that's and we still take some of the same courses. We see the same people and stuff like that. And so we are aware of the changes, and there's been a large shift. They're trying. You got to understand that the levels of change are like the crust of the earth. The inside part is very malleable, and it molds like this, and it's always moving and stuff. But the outside is very slow to move. And it's the same thing with anything to do with mental health or changing a culture. Okay, you're going to have parts of it on the inner core that are very rapid. Like inside here, my emotional side, I could be going through 10 different emotions here in the next 30 seconds or 5 minutes. Makes no difference. But the outside, you're going to see the exact same face. So the same thing that's happening in the military is they really are trying to change that culture. But it's going to take a long time for it to manifest and actually take root. Same thing with women, bring women in the military. At first, it was very slow, and now it's like they don't care. It's like whoever shows up comes on in kind of thing, and women are they're no longer a minority like they were 10 years ago versus 20 years ago versus 30 years ago, where it was like, look, that's a unicorn kind of thing.
Yeah, I was in the 3rd Battalion. I was just arriving as she was leaving.
Yeah.
But I can't remember her name. But the first that I know of, the
Yeah.
first lady, the first female grunt, came to the 3rd Battalion. And of all the battalions to come to, Jesus, why would they put her in the 3rd? It's like they wanted to break her.
Yeah.
And the 3rd was brutal.
Yeah.
But even then, in the early 90s, there was a lot of respect for her and a lot of protectionism as well.
Yeah.
quite a few guys, as I'd ask questions because I'm a curious guy,
Yeah.
because I'd never met her. They had her back, and they spoke actually quite highly of her.
Yeah.
And they said, all we give a shit is that you can do your job. You can do
Yeah.
your job, we're happy.
Yeah.
And yet, sociologically, the expectation is, a bunch of Army guys, they must have been a bunch of assholes to her.
Yeah.
That wasn't the case.
Yeah.
It wasn't the case at all. I'm sure. I guarantee there were some assholes.
Yeah.
But all in all, she was respected.
Yeah.
And people, most of the guys I talked to, they wouldn't have anybody badmouth her. No way.
Yeah.
They say,
Yeah.
hey, she did her job. She was a good soldier. Shut up.
Yeah.
Shut your cake hole. And that was the response I was used to anyway.
Yeah.
John, what would you say? There's a lot of really well-meaning veterans out there who post on Facebook, hey, if you're having a rough day, give me a call.
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
That sort of thing. Now, if somebody doesn't have the mental health first aid course, which I haven't taken yet, have you taken it, by the way? The mental health first aid?
I've probably taken a variation of it.
All right. So mental health first aid, or the training I just did which was very specific
Yeah.
for the peer support groups, or if they're not a psychologist, what's the best advice you can give for the wannabe? I'm using the wrong words. I don't want to trivialize like that. For the well-meaning, for the well-meaning veteran who simply wants to be a good guy and have the back of the other veterans, when they do, or if they do have their phone ring,
Yeah.
or if they do intervene, what's the top 2 or 3 things that they really need to remember so they don't make a bad situation worse?
First of all, unless you know, placating is the worst thing you do.
Okay, can you give me an example?
Unless you've tried to commit suicide or else you thought about doing or committing suicide, don't say you understand.
Okay.
If you don't fucking understand, don't say you understand.
Mm-hmm.
Don't enable as well. Okay? If someone is threatening suicide kind of thing, it may, right answer may be like, okay, go ahead. Or the other thing that could be the most wrong thing to do is like, no, don't do that. Because now all of a sudden it's a power shift.
Okay.
So when you get that phone call that rings in the morning, sometimes the best thing to do is just be there for them.
It's not about what you say, it's about how you listen.
That's exactly it.
Have any listening tips?
Yeah. Listening tip would, at that critical moment, it's about them.
Yeah.
Hear them. Just hear them. No matter how wrong they are, or no matter how crazy their ideas are, just listen. Let them get their shit out.
And don't tell them what to do.
Don't tell them what to fucking do.
Don't tell them what to do or how to fix it,
Yeah.
or what to think.
Yeah.
And don't tell them, well, what I do is, and it works for me, so that's what you should do too.
Okay,
Which
so-
is, we all have that urge to do, especially as guys, but especially as combat arms guys. It's improvise, adapt, overcome, close with and destroy the enemy, meet the objective and fight
Talk
through.
their language, right? And that's
Yeah.
that's another really good point there, is talk their language. And once again, this is where because I have a bit of a diverse background, that it helps, right? I can talk Air Force to someone, I can talk Reg Force to someone, or Reserve, doesn't matter. Combat
Do you
arms.
raise your voice an octave when you speak Air Force?
Funny.
That was pretty good.
Okay,
Like, he's
I
either
do
going to
wanna-
laugh or he's going to throw a punch.
I want to
me. He's
give I
gonna
want
do
to
one
give
of the
you I want to give you an example. Not long ago, I had a phone call from Ottawa. Okay, and not from headquarters. Okay,
Wasn't the
but-
bat phone from the Prime
It
Minister?
wasn't the 1-800. No, it wasn't red. No. Anyways, so what it was one of my buddies was on course, and he said, "Hey, John, we'll just call Jones, okay? Jones, whatever, because it's a common name, okay? John Doe. There you are. We'll do a John Doe, okay? So, hey, John Doe is on Facebook right now, and there's a standoff going on. I'm like, holy shit, okay. So I do the old Facebook thing there, and I'm like, holy fuck. So I call up John Doe, And I say, look, dude, I'm going to come on down. He's like, don't bother. There's a freaking standoff. They're not going to let you in, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what's going on here? So he fills me in a little bit. Now, there's no way someone else outside our, because we did basic training together and stuff like that. We did our first 3 years in Germany together and stuff, right? So we go back, and I haven't seen him since we left Germany, right? But I picked him up and picked up the phone call and just like 1991 over again kind of thing, right?
No time's passed at all.
No time passed whatsoever. So I get in there and I'm talking to him, blah, 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 on the phone, stuff like that. And I'm like, hey, look, I'm going to come on down and visit you. Well, sure, whatever. And I'm like, no, I told you, I'm going to do it. So I did it. I knew I couldn't get in there. He knew I couldn't get in there. But what do you think that did for me just driving there for him did?
Showed that you're still covering a 6. Period.
I was there.
Yep.
Regardless if I could actually do it or not, made no difference. So that phone call tip you're talking about, that's what it's about. All these people on Facebook I look at, IGY6. I got your 6. You know what? Don't fucking tell somebody. You can call anytime you want and I'll be there unless you're willing to take that call. Because you're not doing anybody any favors other than helping yourself feel like a social justice warrior. You're placating yourself. Unless you can help somebody, don't fucking say it.
Yeah, it's nobody reaches out for help in this world.
Yeah.
Unless they're already at the end.
That's right.
You know, and that's what people don't understand. If you make a promise that you can't keep, they're already at the end, and they've already been betrayed, and it's just one last betrayal.
Yeah.
And that could be exactly the straw that breaks the camel's back.
Yeah. You know what? When we're in the box and we're doing our discussions in peer support, you have to be honorable to your word. Okay. I don't want to hear, if I have to break out a freaking helmet to listen to your story, you're in the wrong room. Okay. We got to talk dead serious. That's the only way to move forward, right? That's the only way to fix your shit. Now, I do need to go back to what is peer support versus what it's not, right? Now, we already discussed, just remind me here, we said it's not a replacement for, right?
Not a replacement for therapy.
Exactly. So what it is, it's one of the tools, because what we have discovered is that getting over this stuff, it's more than just one thing. There's no such thing as a silver bullet that's going to fix this fucking problem. Because anybody that ever approaches me is either get it the fuck out of me or fix it so I can move forward.
Yeah, and it doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work like that. Okay, no. It's neither one of those two things.
It's a journey, John. It's all about the journey.
Exactly. It sounds kind of corny, but that's exactly what it is.
There's no silver bullet. It's a long-ass road.
It's about learning how to cope with and deal. And just because you have an OSI doesn't mean your life is done. There's so much more to it. I have learned so much more about myself, about society, about dealing with other people, about reading other people. And these are things you just don't learn in school. These are things that you don't learn in the military. They don't teach you this stuff. You know, they look at the certain elements and say, okay, these are the traits we need, and this is what we're gonna practice with you. Everything else is just garbage.
What do you say to the person that says, "Oh, okay, I'm going to reach out for help now"? They jump through a couple of the hoops, do their assessment, go to a couple of therapy sessions, and go, "I'm good. Thanks, appreciate that. I'm good now. See ya."
So what I say
I'm
to
going to pop
them,
smoke and off I go.
Yeah, no, that happens a lot, actually. It happens a lot. It's a very, very, very routine. And as soon as someone says, hey, I totally got this, I don't need any help no more, and I'm going to show up. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll see you in 6 months. And by the way, please remember what I said. You know, this is something that you have to be on top of all the time. The minute you say, I totally got this, I don't need any help anymore, that is the beginning of the end right there. You are on a downhill slide. And just like a bad diet,
it bounces right back.
It bounces back with extra weight.
Yeah.
You watch these people take these fad diets, and they're going to lose 10 pounds in 5 days, and you're like, first of all, that's not healthy.
Well, it's a bit of a self-imposed ambush, isn't it?
It's exactly as it.
Because you're setting yourself people. You're like, I'm good, and then you're feeling so great.
Yep.
And when you do get blindsided by it, and you thought that you were squared away, it just hits you all that harder because it's like, oh, how depressing! I thought I was there.
The higher the bar, the higher the fall.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. So, as I said before,
So recovery is what, 6 months, 8 months?
Oh yeah, no, I got it down to 4 months and 6 days now. Okay.
Wow, you're a
This
pro.
yeah, this is a crash diet, buddy. So listen to this closely. I got all these tips. Okay, tips and tricks. No, that never works. It truly doesn't. Peer support. Peer support transcends time. Okay. So what'll happen when I'm saying that is, it's it can start in uniform and it'll go through your transformation out of uniform into civilian life. Okay. Not as a civilian. We were never civilian. Okay. Into civilian life. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Big difference there. And then through your discovery phase, your crash and your rebirth and stuff, that kind of stuff. So peer support will follow you through that whole thing. Too many of these other courses are time sensitive. In other words, I know there's one course out there, you do that course for a weekend, you go away for 2 weeks, you come back for a weekend, and you do that. But after that, there's no follow-up, or very little, right? So you're on your own there. The thing is with peer support is it's there for as long as you need it. Through your growth, through your lapse, through your relapses, all these kinds of things, right? So it's there the whole time, and it has to be.
For peer support coordinators that are out there or people that are within that world, how important is it to have the meeting consistently without any interruptions?
It's key. It's one of the founding elements of it. It truly is. Like the confidentiality, the time. You know what I have seen work the best, and this is talking once again not as my other thing, but as John Senior, is the 14-day cycle, the 2-week cycle. It works the best. I cannot wait for my every second week because I can contain stuff within that time, and then I hit that 2-week period, and I am chomping at the bit to start talking, to get stuff off my chest, because I can't take that and I can't put that into my household. I can't put that into my girlfriend or my family. I can't. That's not their responsibility. This shit that I picked up belongs in that box with other people that got it the same way.
If for logistical reasons, a peer support group, say, goes on hiatus for 2 months, let's call it, what's the impact of that on the people that are counting on that group?
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Geez, people will attempt suicide. People will wind up in the hospital. People will wind up near divorce. It gets bad. It gets bad when you just walk away and just it disappears, and you're actually left hanging. So I mean, you have to find some way to compensate. You know, if people go away on to do a trip down to the States for 3 months kind of thing, you know what? You better have a phone call somewhere.
Lorraine Smith McDonald is doing her PhD thesis on PTSD, and I had her on the show a while ago. It was a great show. And Lorraine was talking about moral injury.
Yeah.
And when there's a 2-month hiatus with peer support, it seems like that's a betrayal in itself. Mm-hmm. Because you said you had my six, that you were there for me when I needed you the most, and now you're not. So can you see that? I'll just say it. I could see that absolutely poking those raw wounds. And really feeling like,
Mark, it depends on your point of view.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'll tell
for
you,
some people, I could
for
see
some
it,
people,
I could see
absolutely.
it being rough.
So here's the thing: is taking that little 2-month hiatus sometimes. Okay. It's going to force a person to look at themselves deeper. It's going to force them to use the tools that they were learning and gaining in group or in that support system, because we can't always be there, and at some point in time, you have to leave the nest. So we're not pushing people out when that happens in peer support. You're not pushing someone out. What you're doing is it's their test. Okay, it's when they come back, they're going to know where they need to grow, where they need to put more effort in, where they are good, and that kind of stuff, right?
How do you know when somebody is ready for peer support? Because I know you've said no to people in the past. Say no, not right now. What's the line, or how do you gauge that, whether or not they're ready for the peer support group?
You don't. You're looking at indicators is all you're doing. You're looking at attitude. is a big thing. You ask them a few questions and you get the answers back. And if they're in ridiculous level of denial, they're not ready.
Yeah.
They're not ready. You have to be able to look at yourself inside and be honest. There's a difference between thinking you're ready and knowing you're ready.
Well, it wouldn't take much for one strong personality to wreck a meeting.
No.
It's a delicate balance. Is there work you do ahead of time with people that are new to the group to sort of prep them for what to expect and what the rules of the game
there's
are?
certain people that you just have to do one-on-ones with
Yeah.
for a while to try to bring them on down. And you cannot just say, yeah, come on in, no problem. They're going to cause harm to other people. And that's the other thing with peer support as well. Regardless of what branch or what animal it looks like, it's one of the sacred things is do no harm.
Yeah.
And that's why
Like the Hippocratic Oath.
Exactly. You can't be hurting nobody,
Yeah.
intentional or unintentional, right? So with that, I mean, how do you know you're not unintentionally hurting somebody? Well, that's where you have to have that trust. Okay. And what I mean by that is like, okay, Mark, if you hear something in here that's a problem and it bothers you, let me know after, because there's nothing in here that's directed at a person to hurt them intentionally. Right?
How have you personally grown as a person because of peer support?
Oh, Jesus.
Like aside from OSIs, aside from PTSD, how have you grown as a person as a result of peer support?
I'm able to learn. I'll rephrase that. I'm a lot better at reading people now. I can tell when someone is not really being genuinely honest, or if they doubt. It's maybe a lot more insightful, I guess, is what it really truly has been. And even dealing with my girlfriend's daughter, it's really helped in my own personal life as well. I've also weaponized some of my own this stuff I've learned against my own self to make myself function better longer.
What do you mean by weaponized?
Able to not to say, okay, this is what my real problem is here, and I don't really need to deal with it right now, so I'll just stave off this dealing with what I need to deal with, that kind of stuff. Denial factor. Well, I'm okay. I can do this for the next 2 months. I can do this for the next 6 months. I'm okay for this. I'm okay for that. It doesn't bother me.
If somebody's looking for peer support, how can they find it in their area?
Through Veterans Affairs.
Okay.
Simple enough.
Honestly,
that's the only answer.
For any of the American viewers, we are in
Yes.
Canada. So up here, it's Veterans Affairs Canada, VAC, as we call it. And in the States,
It's just straight VA.
The VA.
It's just the VA.
Just the
Veterans
VA.
Affairs
And up
Canada.
here, it's VAC.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, Veterans Affairs Canada versus Veterans Affairs down there.
John, I think we're going to be doing a lot of these shows.
Yeah, I think so.
About a lot of different topics, but this was a good start.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you coming in today and sharing your story, and it's important. And for those that are watching, whether you are a first responder or a veteran, please share this, because where you can't get peer support, part of the Meincke Show podcast is to provide a little bit of what we have at peer support available, though, on YouTube. So please consider doing that. And I'll be making a separate channel specifically. But right now, you can go to YouTube, where you're probably seeing this right now. Look for the Meincke Show podcast. That's Meincke, Mike Echo, India November, Charlie, Kilo, Echo, Meincke Show podcast. And it's also available on Anchor.fm, iTunes, and several other platforms. John?
I do need to say that I'm interested to see the feedback you get from this. And please understand that the discussion we had here is very generalized. There's nothing here very specific to anybody out there. And the fact that, I'm not talking as my paid thing at all. I'm talking strictly here as John Sr. and what I've learned about peer support in general.
No, we're two veterans on a journey
that
have been through a lot, that knew jack squat about OSIs before we started looking for help ourselves. And now we're doing what we can in our own small way to contribute back to the veteran community. John, thanks so much for being on the show today,
pleasure.
brother.
Thank you very much.
All right.